Welcome back, everybody. We have another great show with our special guest, Ed Marchiselli. He's the owner of Ask the Seal, and he's going to bring a lot of great insight on his success in business during this particular podcast. Good morning, Ed. How you doing?
Good morning, Didier. I'm doing excellent. How about you?
Doing awesome, man. Good to see you again. It's been a long time.
Absolutely.
Time goes by so fast, doesn't it?
It does.
So, for our listeners in today's episode, we're kind of going to dive into the minds of successful business owners like Ed, and we're going to discover some of his aha moments, some of his key decisions that actually rendered his success to where he's at today. We're also going to, he's going to provide some insight for those who are wanted to be aspiring entrepreneurs or even business owners. He's going to kind of give you some tips of how his journey led to where he is today, during for his success as well. And for our listeners, if you find this content helpful and you would like to see more of this type of content, please feel free to leave a comment, like, or subscribe to this video. That would be great. So with that being said, Ed, let's dive right in and talk to our listeners about your background.
Great. Yeah, sure. So I've kind of got an interesting combination of technology and home services. And I was actually working in the technology space and working with companies that had large field service teams. And I was out in Silicon Valley, actually, and I wanted to move back to Florida and ended up in the air conditioning business. And so we had a air conditioning plumbing business in Sarasota, Florida, and grew that. And it was while I was at that company that I had the idea for the Seal Security and Confidence, and been doing that now for 16 years.
Wow, that's I know your business you started back in 2008 when I was kind of like, doing some background. And I think what's so interesting about what you guys do, you've been doing it for nearly a decade.
Yep.
And based on what your website says, you've been helping clients differentiating themselves to build great reputations. And I think a lot of businesses today are not a lot, but there's a few businesses that actually miss that mark. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely.
And so providing the tools that differentiate your business from low end competitors in a meaningful and verifiable, right, that's the word,
Yes.
way, resulting in higher closing rates. Leads to employee satisfaction for the business owner. So I really like how that mission statement is put forward on your website as well. So kudos to you for that.
Thank you. Yeah, we're really serving two audiences. One is the consumers who really want to make sure that whoever's coming to their home or business to do work is safe and that they're properly licensed and insured. But it's equally as important for not the company as well as the employees to build that reputation or build that relationship with their customers and leverage it into reputation management and reviews.
Let's talk about what you said about keeping the businesses, their customers safe. Can you go into that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So, when the whole reason I started this when I was in the air conditioning and plumbing business is we would interview people that worked for our competitors who wanted to come work for us, and we would background check them, and we found, multiple recent burglary convictions. We have credit card fraud, some really, rape and some other things that are just horrible. And that's even worse when it's a home service company and you're going into somebody's home. So that the whole idea was to not just for a company, not just to say they background check, but to be able to prove it. And just as importantly, for those other companies that don't do it or don't do it right, to say we do it too. So it is verifiable. And the badges, when we issue somebody a badge, it means that they have passed our background check and not been convicted of any violence or theft in the last 7 years, and that they're not a registered sex offender. And it's good for the homeowner, it's good for the company, and it's good for the employees.
And I noticed, when you're driving around, there's, you have that badge, the seal, ask the seal badge, or these businesses have them on their trucks, which I believe, and I really believe that it gives them credibility too, as well. Correct?
Absolutely, yeah. The feedback I've gotten is from our clients is, customers ask about it. They'll call us. There are consumers who've never heard of it before, and they'll see it on the customer's vehicle or on their uniform or on the badge, and that they'll end up calling us or coming to the website just to make sure the person has it, because they go from not ever hearing about it to like demanding that people have it overnight once they understand it and know that it's available and doesn't cost them anything.
Interesting. And in terms of, costing them anything, it's kind of, it provides that safety net, right?
It does. Yep, absolutely.
So what's a major lesson you've learned in running your business? Anything that kind of stands out?
Well, I would say that I've given this information dozens of times to anyone that I've met that started a business. Is time is the one thing that you can't shortcut. You can throw more money at things, you can try to do things smarter, you can change a lot of things, but you cannot control time. And time, you obviously, clearly there's examples of overnight successes, but most of the overnight successes, they were in business for 20 years before they became an overnight success, and you just don't know about it. So, and I tell people, when you start a business, it literally is like pushing a train uphill, and if you take your hands off that train for 2 seconds, it starts coming back at you. The more time goes on, the easier that gets, and then you do reach the top of the hill, and then you start hanging on, and it gets a lot easier. And so it's just important to, put that time in early, be positive, and know that you will get there, because, you work your tail off, you sacrifice everything early on, and it doesn't feel like you're getting anywhere. And it just takes time. We get new clients all the time. Says I've been looking at this for 5 years and think, I just finally just decided that I need to do it. So that's probably the number one thing that I try to encourage people, is to give it time.
And that is important too, because time you only have so much of, right?
Correct.
And as
Correct.
you continue to move through the process and try to dot your I's and cross your T's as a business owner, things kind of come at you, like you were saying. And I guess you always have to stay positive and focus on the light at the end of the tunnel, because it will eventually get there. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, technically you could be doing the wrong thing, and if you keep doing the wrong thing forever, you might not get the results you want. But if you're doing the right thing, it's a matter of time. You just need to keep at it.
Another thing too, when you're making these mistakes, and everybody makes mistakes in business, or even when you're working for someone, you just got to take a step back and evaluate that and learn from those mistakes, and just continue to try to push forward as well. So great, man, great information. Are there any kind of trends that are shaping your industry right now that you see?
Well, the biggest trend is that it's just every employer you talk to say it's getting harder and harder to find people, and good people, and people that want to work. That's unfortunately the number one trend that we see, is just being difficult to find people willing and able to work, and that
Mhm.
are good employees with the right attitude and everything else.
Why do you think it's harder now in the industry that you're in to try to find good help? What's Is there something that kind of you're hearing on a regular basis?
Well, the population in general is getting older, so a lot of those people with the work ethic that we're looking for are starting to retire, and the younger people, they just they haven't necessarily had that same adversity the older generation had, and they're just expecting everything to be handed to them. And so a lot of folks, they're really interviewing on character and attitude, and they're willing to train the person. So, used to be like you wanted to hire somebody that was ready to hit the ground running technically on day one. And employers are figuring out that attitude is more important, and that they're willing to train the skills if they have the right person.
That is so well put. And an interesting, you might remember this as well, is like when in high school, right? We would go to wood shop. We would take, during class, during the school, during how do you say it? During the 8-hour day at school, you
Yeah.
would go to wood class. You would do all these different classes. And then you would have an opportunity to become an apprentice or go to a trade school after that. Remember that?
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. But that became uncool at some point. It's getting cool again, but at some point that became uncool, and everybody wanted to go to college, and the colleges are just handing out loans. It's like, hey, buy now, pay later, and
Right.
and when you're that age too, you want to stay in school as long as you can and have fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Exactly. So, we have listeners that are listening to this podcast, and they're on the fence. They're wanting to jump in and possibly look at becoming a business owner, right? They want to aspire to be an entrepreneur, work for themselves. Any advice, maybe one or two tidbits of advice? And I know you kind of mentioned a couple things, but anything else that stands out?
Other than just do it, because it is one of the life-changing things you can do, and working for yourself and not dependent on somebody else and their decisions. It's truly empowering and amazing. The advice I give is, it will not be an overnight success. So, if there's something, if you can get your thing while you have your job and your spare time, after hours or weekends, if you can get, your corporate docs and whatever equipment stuff, just don't give up that salary until the last minute. Still give your employer what they're paying you for, but on your spare time, get as much going, because it will be harder. And it will take longer than you think. And you've got to be able to survive that initial period. I don't know what the statistics are in businesses failing in the first few years. It's high. And you've got to be able to, make it through that. So just, make sure you've got it. Make sure you've got the resources to get through those first couple of years.
Great advice. And a few more things before we wrap up here. How do you balance the work life with personal life?
Yeah, so we're kind of my wife works for the company too. So actually she has more trouble letting it go than I do. Like after hours, sometimes she'll just start talking. I'm like, I don't want to talk about work, So, but we both work for the company, so that makes it easy because we have common interests and that sort of thing. And I'm not boring her all day with my stories, but we actually have an RV, and we travel around the country, and we use Starlink when we travel. So it's hard for me to take 2 weeks off. So when I travel, a lot of times we'll travel in the RV, and so instead of taking 2 weeks off, we'll go somewhere for a month. Because it takes us 4 weekends to do what we would normally do in 2 weeks. So Starlink's been amazing for us. We can be anywhere in the country and have full access to do Zoom meetings or phone calls or whatever. So it actually, we found a way to make it really, I wouldn't say easy, but it really is a good lifestyle for us.
I love that, Ed. That is so awesome. When you bring in personal and business, and it enhances the quality of life, right, dude? This is great.
Absolutely.
So let's, as we wrap up here, can you provide our listeners with the way to get a hold of you, your phone number, and your website?
Sure. So the website is theseal.com. You're looking behind me at our old name was asktheseal.com. Both of those still work, but the company is now theseal.com. The phone number is 800-410-SEAL. And we answer the phone, and we'll get you to whoever you need to speak with. And info@theseal.com is the best email address, and that will always find its way to the right person. If you have a question, it'll always be routed to whoever needs to answer that question. So theseal.com, info@theseal.com, and 800-410-SEAL is the phone number.
Ed, it was a pleasure, man. It's definitely a great pleasure catching up with you again. And
absolutely. Happy to do it. Yeah. Great talking to you.
Absolutely. We wish you much success and continued success in the near future as well.
Thanks, Didier.
You're very welcome.
Thank you for tuning in to First Media Consulting Podcast. If you enjoyed the podcast, subscribe today. To nominate a business you would like to recommend to be on our show, go to firstmediaconsulting.com or call. Thank you for listening.